Hello everyone and welcome. This is just a very short video where I would like to share my thoughts and reflections about what has happened very recently in Hawaii. So I'm speaking about the Maui. I'm really sorry if I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but I think it's Maui forest fires, which really caused a massive devastation and has led to the loss of lives. So this is where my heart goes out for everyone who suffered losses and everyone who is going through a really, really tough time where they actually lost everything. And the main theme of my reflection is actually that the circumstances, how the fire and wind combined are a little bit unusual, so to speak. So whenever something is really unusual and quite rationally we cannot figure it out yet, well, astrology always has a really, really good hint. So officially, the fire started burning on the 8th of August. So we all know that that's Lion's Gate portal. But let us let me share my screen with you so you can look at the chart as well. And this is where let it not be my opinion or my personal perspective. This is where everyone who knows a little bit of astrology, let's judge for yourself. So, the very first thing that we can see that is precise, because usually when we're looking at a big event and the astrology behind it, we're looking for precision in the sky. So we have Black Moon Lilith conjunct Venus retrograde in the sign of Leo. Now, Leo has Black Moon Lilith, Venus, and the Sun in there. It also has other dwarf planets, but let's stay like this for this moment. So Venus can represent values of any kind, even real estate values because it is the ruler of Taurus. And Black Moon Lilith, well, she represents a lot of things, but you know, what certain feelings, certain emotions, certain wants, certain desires, how they are linked to values, especially the value of real estate. And why am I focusing on real estate? We have the moon conjunct Uranus precisely as well in the sign of Taurus. Venus rules this sign. So this is quite relevant, another precision in the sky. And needless to say, these two precise energies are precisely against squaring each other. Okay, maybe the precision is not 1,000,000% accurate because there is a few minutes uh, between them, but it's still roughly 23 degrees, 23 degrees. Now, 23 in numerology adds up to 5, and I do believe that 5 represents sudden, unexpected changes, and sometimes, disasters, even because that is an unexpected event, a change that will lead somewhere as well. And, let's just look at, for example, tarot. Usually the fives are not the most optimistic energies and cards, especially in the main minor arcana. So where I'm going with this is that, the moon is clear, the collective emotion, the collective feeling. Uranus is the shock, it is the unexpected, it is the hazard, the disaster factor, let's say. And the square with Black Moon, Lilith, and Venus, well, it does affect, the value. It does affect, Venus retrograde. Everything that those people gathered up, saved, built, etc., over the course of a lifetime or something like that. So we can see how this value was affected. Now, moon squaring Black Moon Lilith can, in itself, can mean a lot of fear, a shock, some emotion that really impacts your life very, very deeply. And if we have Venus to the picture, the love, because the people lost everything. So of course that's like a heartache, heartbreak. It is, very, very difficult for exactly their heart space. Now there is much more to this, because we also have the sign of Aries highlighted here, because Pluto at this moment does square quite tightly the nodes of the moon. So the north node in the sign of Aries, Aries is fire, Leo is fire, and there is another fire energy which is not displayed here at 27 degrees of Sagittarius, the galactic center. So somewhere around here. So we can see that it's adding up to a grand fire trine, even if the degrees are not exact. But you may ask yourself, well, isn't the trine ultimately a blessing? Isn't it something harmonious, something beautiful, something positive, almost in a fated way? Well, yes, absolutely, but it depends for who. Because sometimes a blessing, it is truly a blessing for one side, but it can be a big loss for the other side, if you know what I mean. So the galactic center trining the north node in Taurus, sorry, the north node in Aries, well, that has fire hazard written all over it, where these flames can be purging, can be cleansing, can be revealing, or can lead somewhere. And of course, we also have, the sun trine Chiron. Chiron, the wounded healer. Chiron at that moment, on the 8th of August, is also retrograde. So when it, again, a blessing, but sometimes with Chiron, the bad blessing, the good part comes after the wounding, if you know what I mean. Now let's add a little bit more complexity to this chart, because this is what really strikes at me. Because also at the time of this 8th of August, the Lion's Gate, well, there is actually a cardinal grand cross in the sky. So this grand cross is formed by the north node in the sign of Aries and planetoid Eris, goddess of discord, the fire starter. If there is arson, well, that planet is usually Aries. Eris. Why? Because that is her nature, creational chaos. Just that at this point, she might have left a lot of devastation in her wake. So these two planets are the Aries element. Then we have Capricorn, the other cardinal sign. And this is where we have Pluto. Then we have, and this is one of the highlights, Libra. You have the south node perfectly opposing always the north node, somewhere at 27 degrees Libra here, but conjunct, and this is where it really, really screams at me, dwarf planet Haumea. Now, Haumea and Hawaii have a very special connection, because she is a deity from Hawaii, a creational female deity or guardian spirit. She is responsible, like mother goddess themes, the same thing, Haumea. Just in Hawaiian, she's called Haumea. Now, in physical reality, she is a dwarf planet at the very, very edge of the solar system, and she has an X shape because she revolves around her axis so very fast, so very quickly. So she is associated with very, very, very quick, spontaneous events that create something, like quantum creation. Now, this fire does spark up very, very quickly. Libra is the air, Aries is the fire. So this is where the opposition. And for a cardinal grand cross, you might think that we do need another element, and we have it here. The asteroid Juno in the sign of Cancer. Cancer is housing, the house, the possession, the local community. Juno partnership opposing Pluto. Now, what does this cardinal grand cross mean in the context? Well, there are news, and I don't want to make this a conspiracy. Let's make that clear. This is really, really not about conspiracy. But there are news from the locals. So this is where the locals are saying this. People who actually suffered through the flames and the devastation, that for very many years, big companies or, big real estate firms or something like that was attempting to buy their homes, their properties from them because they had, I don't know what kind of big construction plans there. And of course, the locals and people refused, because they built their houses, from scratch on their own accords. Some built it with their bare hands. So there is a lot of emotion, creativity, and Juno partnerships. And Pluto is opposing Juno, so that's already a question mark. Because Pluto in Capricorn is exactly the big company, the big firm, top down authority, those who are in control, even militaristic power. So you might say, well, yeah, the firefighters and the governors and all, yes, but opposing Juno, you know what I mean. I don't wanna interpret this for yourself because I really and dwarf planet Haumea squaring Pluto. That's so symbolic because Haumea is Hawaiian, and in the astrology in the chart, this Haumea, the Hawaiian planetoid, so to speak, is squaring Pluto, the devastation. Pluto, very many times in history, is a key figure in devastation. Not that it is causing it, it is highlighting it. For example, tied to Pluto's discovery was now either it is the hydrogen or the atomic bomb, something, a big bomb, where astrologers could not understand how Mars could cause such a really, really cruel and horrible action. So that's how their research led to Pluto. So Pluto was considered Mars's higher octave because it has much more steam in it than Mars if we want to look at it in a devastation way. And then we have the North Node and this Eris, Pluto squaring Eris, Haumea opposing Eris, Juno squaring Eris and the North Node. So this says losing, fire hazard, and conspiracy, what is true and what is not so true, written all over it. Now, another element which really Mars trining Jupiter. It's not an exact trine, but Mars also trining this Uranus. Virgo can be seen as the vegetation, as whatever caught fire, the biosphere of the island. That's Virgo. Mars is, we know, the fire starter. Mars is conjunct Orcus. Orcus is anti-Pluto. Both Pluto and Orcus are meant to reveal corruption. Orcus is responsible for rebuilding. Pluto is with the purge. You know what I mean? And Mars is expanded by this Jupiter. So it's a trine, a blessing. But if you're a real estate company, whatever, or any Capricornian expression, and you really, really want to get the land, even if it's impossible, because there is no agreement to it, South Node and Haumea and Libra. Haumea protects no agreement, Libra, the sign of the law, sign of consentment, sign of the other, basically. And if the other says, well, sorry, no, I'm not interested, then it's a no. So you know what I mean? So Eris is opposing this South Node and Haumea. Pluto is squaring Haumea. Juno, partnership. We can also see bad partnership. You know what I mean? Because the people are one partner, the governors other partner. Bad partnership, no communication, no trust. So this square can lead to a big reshaping of the entire community, and unfortunately quite physically as well, because if someone wanted things, events, to go a certain way, then though all those shrines, Mars the fire starter, Eris also, are good news. Basically your will is gonna go forward, it is gonna manifest. Uranus conjunct the moon, you know what I mean, the awakening to the fact that now this is where everyone has to judge for themselves. What does this event tell us? What is the meaning behind this? Does this mean that this was in a way manifested? So if someone desires something very, very deeply, there always comes a moment when that desire can manifest with great ease. And I do believe that Lion's Leo fire, Black Moon Lilith in Leo conjunct Venus, fear or negative emotion or catatonic fear, primordial panic attached to values, possession, everything that you love. So this is self-explanatory. And then there is the Taurus planets here, Uranus and the moon. How it makes us, it's incredible. We can't even believe it. Jupiter in Taurus, it is at the limits of belief. But then another perspective is Uranus trine Pluto. Okay, the trine is very, very unexact. So we can barely call it a trine. Yet still Uranus is the planet of technology. Taurus is the earth with everything in it. Capricorn can represent, the mastery, so to speak, what we can achieve with technology or anything similar. So is weather and these Uranus is the planet of wind, hurricane. Hurricane is so Uranus. You know what I mean? And we can also say that Mars is trining Uranus, even if it's not exact. So again, what does this really mean? Because in a way, we can see the future of this rebuilding community, the lessons learned, more safety measures, the systems gonna be upgraded. All of that is Uranian and Mars and Virgo, the meticulosity, and Lilith conjunct Venus, never ever should this repeat again. And Leo, that it really impacted the heart and the young and all of that. So we can see where this is leading energetically. But the causes of this, what contributed truly to a very unusual phenomenon, to a coincidence, so to speak, to come into action and to come into existence basically. And then the whole suspicious conditions that it played out, for example, the alarms not ringing and everyone responsible who could have done something at that moment, it was away, they were away from the state by pure coincidence. So this is just where I'm looking at the chart, and certain things are so very symbolic that I'm not sure what to think. But this Homea being involved in this cardinal Grand Cross, it's really, really, striking to me. And another fire energy, Mars at 18 degrees squaring Vesta in Gemini, the wind. Gemini is again air. Vesta is goddess of the sacred fire energy. Vesta protected Rome, and whenever the Vestals could not keep the fire burning, whenever the fire was extinguished, big catastrophe happened. Rome burned down at one point. Vesta, another very, very symbolic element here, with precision squaring Mars and Virgo. You know what I mean? Virgo again, the trees, the living earth. Mars, the fire principle. Pretty amazing here. The symbolism of all of that. So I would like to leave it at this, because this is basically my thoughts and how I see all of this. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And please don't share this video, because I don't want to get in trouble. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I am just looking at the astrology.